What's it like to work with world-class talents like Chris Hemsworth, Clint Eastwood, George Lopez, and Edward James Olmos? That's what my guest is here to talk about today on episode 2 of Revolutionary Insights. Let's roll. Welcome back, Revolutionaries. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what it's like to work with world-class talents like Chris Hemsworth, Clint Eastwood, Edward James Olmos, and George Lopez, and what being on set with them is like. My guest today, Jayce Mccormick, is going to be talking about what it was like working with these giants of Hollywood, and hopefully share some really awesome tips for any aspiring actors out there. Before we get into that, however, if you're somehow new to the channel, then welcome. My name is Mike. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, YouTuber, writer, director, and a whole bunch of other stuff I really don't have time to list here. On my channel, you'll find original short films, music videos, and filmmaking and photography tutorials designed to help you level up your creative game. If that sounds like it's up your alley, then go down below, click the subscribe button, click that tiny little bell icon so that way you don't miss a single upload. Leave a like, and also share your thoughts down in the comment section below. With all that said, let's roll right into the video. So Jayce, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So I know that it's rather interesting how you got into film. So let's start off a little easy and just tell us how you got your start in the biz.
Initially, it started out as just something that I always wanted to try. It was something that I thought, man, this would be really incredible to just be a part of. And if you grow up here in the Southwest, especially here in Las Cruces, your family will tell you things like, well, we're not gonna take you all the way out to California for just on a whim, you know. And furthermore, if they're shooting some of your favorite television shows as a kid and you're aspiring to do something like that, they'll say, well, we're not gonna be making trips all the way out to Florida where they're filming that stuff. Like, that's just not in the cards, right?
Right.
So very early on as a kid, you hear these things and you're a little bit disappointed at first. You're thinking, oh man, how do you ever get out to Hollywood? How do you ever get out there and start this, right? So what actually ended up happening was a commercial kind of presented itself for me. This was a chance to do ad campaigns. And so I thought, you know what, I have nothing to lose, kid in high school, and this is nothing to just break away for a day or two, go out and try my hand at it. And it turned out to be really successful. I enjoyed myself. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Nice.
It was also a terrible lesson in how contracts work and how word of mouth and handshakes are done, and some of the stuff that was promised just didn't happen. So that was a horrible learning experience, but a good one.
Yeah.
So coming back years later to try this again, it was something that I felt that I had at least a little bit of groundwork to start with, and I also had that knowledge to be a little bit smarter about my choices, a little bit smarter about who I trusted and who I surrounded myself with, to work in film, to work in movies. It's actually people that I've worked with have continued to lead me and network me with more individuals that are like-minded.
Right.
They're out to do a good job. They're out for a successful project. It's really funny. That's how you and I ended up working together, and that was through Sherry. So Sherry Pros. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember that. That was very interesting. If I remember correctly, we had to reshoot a scene for a short film that I did called Sentinels, and it was an action scene that was like a 3-on-1 fight, and it was very interesting because we couldn't, for some reason, we couldn't we couldn't use the footage that we had shot previously, and we had to reshoot it, but we lost 2 of our guys, and we needed everybody to come aboard for this. But the 2 other guys that came with us, along with Jayce, they had to learn all the choreography basically on set. And it was crazy because We were trying not to get hit, but also trying to make it look super convincing. But it was a really great shoot day.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. You know, asking where I started with all of this or where this comes from. This comes from meeting those individuals, working with them, and then growing as a performer, as an actor, as a creator. So it's such an interesting way to look at how that all developed, because working with Sherry was doing a project for New Mexico State. They had a finals project, a senior project to do, and I met her on set there. We worked together in a few scenes, and then it was her initial contact saying, hey, I have a person, you know, his name's Michael. He's looking to do something with film he's working on called Sentinels. And that led me to working with Alan and boosting my choreography working with Alan. That led me to working with AJ and also meeting Leslie. So it's so incredible how that happens. And I mention those names because you never know who you're going to run into on a project or who you're going to see again, who you're going to work with again. Jumping way ahead, one of the most recent films that I did, Walking with Herb, here I am running into Leslie again. Here I am running into AJ again, and getting to spend days out on set with them, having prior experience with them, working with them in the past on other projects. That is probably one of the most lucrative things that you receive from doing these projects, is you meet these other people that you network with, and you know it builds from there. So.
I think that one of the most underrated, yet at the same time heavily advertised methods of growing, you know, in your creative career, whether you're an actor or something like that, is networking. You know, everybody says network with everybody, network. But a lot of people just don't do that because they don't want to seem pushy, or they don't want to, you know, seem like they just want to get their nose in everything. But oftentimes that costs them a lot of opportunities sometimes. But networking is one of the best things you can do as an actor or as any creative. Networking worked out for you really well because, if I remember correctly, you got onto 12 Strong through a network connection.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. That ties in exactly to your initial question. How did this all begin? Where did this all start? So a lifelong friend, someone I went to school with since elementary school, I knew he was working in the film industry. I knew that he was a part of a lot of the shows and TV shows that were being made here in New Mexico. It just so happened that I was auditioning for 12 Strong, and my audition, any form of contact about, you know, whether I was going to get a call back, all of that just kind of disappeared. It didn't go anywhere. And I just kind of assumed, oh, well, you know, I probably just wasn't right for the fit. That just wasn't going to be my calling this time around. And it was funny because after passing on it, saying, well, let's move on. You know, 12 Strong is not going to happen for me. That's a shame. Oh, well. I end up seeing that my buddy wants to meet up for drinks, and we agree to go and meet at the game and sit down and just kind of join up and talk, right? So we're chatting, and it comes up. He asks, you know, hey, I assumed, or at least I thought I heard that you were going to be auditioning for that. You know, what happened, or what's going on with that? And that's when I decided to bring it up. Once again, you network, right? So I bring it up and I tell him, well, I knew you were working on the project, but I didn't want to really say anything. I guess I just didn't make the cut, or they didn't do anything with any of my audition stuff. And on the spot, he just decides right then and there, hey, you know what? Let me make a few phone calls. Hold on, let me take a photo.
Nice.
Takes a photo of me at the bar and sends my stuff off. And he goes, yeah, so you need to be on set tomorrow. Be ready to be picked up 4 a.m. And if you don't show, he goes, I'm not talking to you ever again.
Yeah.
So he goes, be ready to work. And that's one of the things that I've always said ever since then. My mindset has always been ready to work. Anytime someone says, hey, we have a project coming up, hey, this is for fun, or this is going to be, you know, for copy credit, I go, hey, you know what? It's a job, and you're ready to work. Let's get out there and do it, right? You know.
I think a lot of people also, like you were saying, they'd never know exactly when that opportunity is coming. You know, you never know what form it'll take. So just a little, you know, tidbit for you guys out there. If you're watching, take every opportunity you can, because you never know where it might lead. So we've talked a lot about, these really awesome experiences and getting your foot in the door with film, but I really wanted to kind of delve into each film specifically. What's the kind of acting role that you usually do? Is it like a background actor, supporting actor, lead, and that sort of thing? And also, what's your favorite type of acting to do? And what was your role in each of these films?
A lot of the work that I enjoy doing is where I just kind of fit in. I'm able to hold my presence in a scene or hold my presence in the project, and I can personally go back and look on it and say, you know what, yeah, you did pretty good there. And if you were noticeable or not, the point of the job, the whole goal there was to not stick out.
Right.
Nailed it, did your job.
Right.
I always think of it as easily forgettable. You go in, you do the scene, you do the work. It's kind of hit and miss. If you see this person regularly, you start to notice them. But if you don't, then in particular, they're doing what their role is, which is, background, scenery is kind of there to fill the scene. And so when I first started doing feature films, it was about filling the scene. It was about just being there to do the background work.
Right.
I was totally just ecstatic with doing the background stuff. And then it just started happening where I started getting featured background. And you would look at it and say, okay, well, what's the difference between background, featured background? You're an extra. What's going on with that? In particular, the way I look at it is a background actor is someone that can add to the scene, and hopefully they're not doing anything distracting to take away. You're not doing your job if you're taking away from the scene or causing chaos in the background. So background is just kind of there because they're necessary. They really make it more believable, more realistic. So that's a very integral, important part of making sure your scene holds, right? Featured background is, I'd like to say it's the waitress that comes up and does something or participates in the scene some way. Not always necessarily a line, but if they have a line, great. That's a phenomenal way to get a feature and to get maybe a close-up, right? I've enjoyed doing a lot of featured background work. I do have this disparity where there are people that are there just for fun. They're there to volunteer. They're kind of like, wait, how come, what makes you more special? What makes you, and it's like, hey, well, same team. We're all here to make this look like a plausible thing, and the joy of it should be that the people who are there to be a part of the film, who are there to take place and do the work, they should want the final project to be the goal. They should want the final film to be the thing, not going back and saying, hey, did you notice? I looked at the camera right there. I kind of broke the fourth wall. Did you see me? It's kind of that wasn't really what your purpose was when you signed up to do this, right? So a lot of my stuff is featured work, featured background. I'm always usually typecast as a bad guy. Oddly enough, I've played a soldier. I've played a really bad dude with, an AK-47. I got another AK-47 when I did the Mule. I got to be a cartel member and be a guard, and that was pretty fun. I've also been a prison guard in a television series, And,
yes, I remember you sent me the ad for that. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. A lot of people still don't quite get it. They say, why are you sending me this Dutch television series? What's going on with this? And I'm like, I'm in it. I'm doing my job. If you don't spot me instantly and go, that's Jayce, well then I am doing my job. I'm doing what's necessary so I don't stick out, right? And then but you go back and you watch it and you go, oh wow, that is him, Then you can get those kudos later. But did the project succeed? Did you do well enough? Or were you one of those standout personalities that they throw into a film or a show and they're doing their cameo and it totally takes away? And that's what I don't want. I don't want to be cameo guy that pops in and just ruins the scene,
Exactly. I think also a lot of people kind of don't realize that, you're not there to be in the limelight. Like you were saying, you're just there to really do your job. And also, like you were saying, your job's not to be noticed. And also, if you're doing background, you're part of a whole. You're not an individual trying to reach out and stand out above everybody else. You are there to help achieve a greater vision and a greater goal. I think I was talking with my buddy AJ about this. Sometimes on background sets like that, there are people who get on to the film just so they can say, oh, I was in this film, or I was in this shot with this actor, or whatever. But I think that's not only very unprofessional, but it's also going to cost you, because people can remember you as, oh, that guy that did this, or that person that did that, you know.
Early word of advice and early lesson is do not get yourself blacklisted.
Yes.
Once you go on a blacklist, especially in the state of New Mexico, in the film industry in general, you're not trusted to be back on a set.
Yeah.
We experienced that once in the middle of filming 12 Strong. I'm sure there might have been other moments. This also occurred on the set with Walking with Herb, and a lot of it just simply has to do with people who are not, I don't want to say ignorant, it's not necessarily that, it's that they're not trained, or they don't have the comprehension or the understanding of why they are there. Exactly what you just said. They're there to do a job. And if you have any kind of ulterior motive to that, you're gonna cause some issues.
Right.
The quick example I could give is that in the middle of filming a war scene for 12 Strong, over 100 background actors, I'm talking all the extras, background actors, right? We have people playing Northern Alliance members. We have the U.S. Special Forces, right? We also have the Taliban members. We have hundreds of people working together to make this scene as realistic as possible.
Right.
You go back and you look at those old westerns, and every single one of those people, they are talented and they're gifted and they're doing their job, and those cowboys and Indian scenes look spectacular because every single person is there to make that look as realistic as possible. Well, what falls apart, especially on the set of 12 Strong, is if you have a random Taliban member pulling out an iPhone and standing in the middle of the sequence and filming and recording. You would think, this person's mindset was, oh, no one's going to catch me. He stood out among 200 people. You have this wide angle shot, and you have these chase trucks that are following, doing all the sequencing, and you have one person standing there with his phone out. It took that one take to blow it, and he was ousted, escorted off the set. Phone was revoked because got to delete that stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not just because that goes against the people who are honing their craft, making the film. It goes against the studio standards. You're stealing from the studios by taking that footage and leaking it and doing something with it. You have no right to it.
Now that we've talked a lot about the standards of professionalism within the industry and what it takes to really kind of, get your foot in the door, but also really present yourself professionally in the industry, let's talk a little bit about your experiences on the solo films like 12 Strong and then The Mule. Now, you mentioned before that you got to work with Chris Hemsworth for a few scenes. Why don't you tell us what that was like?
You go out to set every single day to do your job. You hope and pray, oh, well, maybe they'll pick me for something special. Oh, maybe that, if I'm doing a good enough job, they'll see that. Well, that's kind of always in the back of your mind. Well, there are certain instances where the people behind the scenes who are just making all the moves, they either want to modify or they want to change it up a little bit. They want to try something a little different. The neat thing about 12 Strong is that there were lots of local actors here in New Mexico. They were background actors, and they were kind of handpicked or selected because of their look or the way they carried themselves, or once you saw them in that uniform, the Taliban garb and everything, you just knew, like, oh, we got to do something special with this person, right? And so I was fortunate enough that I was able to be selected for some of that. And there were some really funny guys on set. There was one of them that was walking around holding an RPG, and he had to carry that thing around for like a month. Every single day, check that RPG out and walk around with that. And the bonus to putting in that effort was he was able to achieve some individual shots and some close-ups, because you see this guy on an RPG standing on a tank. They're firing rockets at Chris Hemsworth and the Northern Alliance, and it's just this incredible scene, but you never stop and go back and think, well, how did that person achieve that and arrive at that moment? Right. Well, the scenes that we did with Chris Hemsworth there was a specific moment in the end of the film where he's being rushed. The Taliban are trying to take over, kind of like regain their foothold and kind of stop the Northern Alliance from pushing. And before he receives any kind of reinforcements, he's kind of out there by himself. So the neatest part about that experience was when Chris Hemsworth would speak, when he would talk, especially in between sequences or scenes, he would give his input. He would tell them what he was thinking, he would tell them how he kind of saw the scenes going, and everybody would just stop. We would stop because he has that particular voice, right?
Yeah, that sort of, I'm talking, everybody else kind of shut up, but in a nice way.
Yeah, it has to do with presence, right? So his presence is commanding without being forceful. Yeah. It's a certain level of just refined attitude. He's practiced, he's ready to do his job, he's ready to work. So when he comes on set and gives that presence, if he has something to say, you're not just going to go, is the talent trying to tell us how to do our job? You actually stand there and listen to him, and you understand it. So I was fortunate enough to be in this particular sequence that I'm referring to, and at one point, Chris decides to come over, and he's talking to everybody. The director of photography is standing there, producers there, just a bunch of people are kind of all clustered. I'll never forget, all of us are just standing around, and just at an instant moment, he just, says, "Well, actually, I was thinking that for this particular sequence, if I come this route and come this way, and if the guys are ready for, the Taliban to come through, and if we just do it this way," and he just starts talking about how he sees the scene. Right. They're like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and run a few of those. Let's try that. Let's do that, and let's manipulate, and let's reset here and do that." And it was incredible to watch that process, because that's learning on the job. That's sitting there seeing how they do all of this and being malleable to the set, being able to adhere yourself to what they want. And even if you're getting out of your comfort zone, they're just telling you to change it up, you're gonna have to fall different here. You're gonna have to do a little bit of a stunt, how you die in this next sequence, right? You have to be ready for those changes. And I think that comes from the willingness to do so, but also from the practice and the experience of it.
Right. I think, what you're saying also is that basically it comes down to being adaptable. It comes down to being able to improvise and being able to take direction well. And by the way, awesome Chris Hemsworth impression. But I imagine, especially on a film like that, when there's so much on the line money-wise, and there's so many things and jobs on the line, if you do something wrong, I can imagine it can get stressful. But I also imagine that it would also be rather interesting, but also an experience to really remember for the rest of your life, basically.
One thing that was absolutely incredible was seeing these gentlemen in action. You have Michael Shannon, you have Michael Pena, and you also have the legendary Chris Hemsworth, right? And you see these guys in action doing their day job. They're out there to work. They're out there to do this because, hey, this is their livelihood. This is their meal ticket, right? This is how they earn their wage while also creating. And to be an actor is this incredible thing where you take whatever you have, you present it, and then you give it up for slaughter. You're like, did I do my best? Did I work hard? Did I, And so my experiences from 12 Strong were incredible. I won't forget them. The tenacity that it took to do the job. Right. We decided to film, they decided to film 12 Strong in the middle of winter. I'm talking November, December, January, February. How else are you going to film a war scene in the desert? I'm thankful they chose winter instead of summer, because summer probably would have been miserable. Yeah, to compare the two, I'm thankful I was cold instead of hot, right? Right. We had to leave out of Las Cruces around 2 a.m. every night, drive to Alamogordo to catch a shuttle. That shuttle was at 4 a.m. You're either on it or you're not. About a 2-hour drive, transit out to set. And we had to go out behind White Sands. We had to go through certain, security clearance areas, right? And then, 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., you're arriving on set. And that's the start of your day. Everything else before that was to get you to set. Now it's 6:30. Now it's time to work. Now your day begins, right? Right. And so from the moment you get there, 6:30, it's just this practice. It's I know I need to go here and do wardrobe. I need to go here and do makeup. I need to go to props and get my weapons. You catch breakfast along the way, you head out to set, and then you're ready to work. Right? And those hours out there were long, and they were cold, but it was probably some of the most fun I've ever had.
It sounds like 12 Strong was an incredibly special experience. You had another special experience on a film called The Mule with the legendary and ultra-talented Clint Eastwood. Let's talk a little bit about your role on that film and the scenes you did. And I understand that you also got to briefly meet and talk with Clint Eastwood.
The Mule was just another one of those things where you see a local casting call and they're saying, hey, everybody come out. We're just gonna flood this audition site with as many potentials as possible. The thing that ties this back to networking is you go in there thinking, I'm not going in here as someone special. I'm going in as me, and I'm hoping that I'm a fit for this film. I'm hoping I'm part of this project somehow, some way. When I was cast for The Mule, it was one of those calls that is just like unbelievable. Like you can't believe you get the call, right? And the experience leading up to it was you show up, you do your audition, they ask you to take a couple shots, extra, stills to just kind of get some idea of how they want to use you or place you. And I really didn't have any idea how I would be used. And then when I got the call and they go, yeah, we're going to use about 8 guys for guards for this sequence and this scene. And I thought, I'm one of 8. I made it as one of 8. Like, that's incredible to me.
Right.
Other people would possibly look at that and go, well, it's just another background. It's just more featured background. All of those experiences add up. All of those moments will forever be immortalized in those films. And you can go back and say, I was in a Clint Eastwood film.
Right.
I can validate myself and say, of all of his filmography, all his work, I was in at least one of those films, and that's money. That's awesome.
Right. I can imagine that's quite an honor too, and for lack of a better word, bragging rights too. Because it's just like, how many people can say, I've been in a Clint Eastwood movie? That's very, very few.
Absolutely, and even more so, it was just one of those things that it brings you great joy, but also presents you with a new challenge. The new challenge is, okay, you know what? I did featured background as a soldier, doing soldier stuff in 12 Strong. This is a little bit more specific. We don't have 150 background people running around. This is a very specific and concise set.
Right.
A Clint Eastwood set is one of those places to just admire because it's so practiced. People work in near silence. The amount of concentration and focus that is going on a Clint Eastwood set,
it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. And the fact that you see so many people working at such a high intensity and a high capacity, it's all done out of respect for him and his wishes to make the film the way he wants, with kind of like no desire to wait around for screwiness or have any of those kind of mess ups. And so if I could compare the two, I would say with 12 Strong, hundreds and hundreds of moving parts, and there was chaos, and there was reshoots, and there was take 7, take 8, take 9 on a lot of sequences, and it was months and months of work. The amount of time for The Mule was very short. It was very short-lived. They showed up, they got set, ready to film the whole thing, and then the issues we ran into were rainstorms and thunderstorms. So there was delays, and the delays kept pushing things back, So the party sequence in The Mule, that's one of the sequences where I get to jump out of being a guard, and I get to be one of the cartel members that's attending the event. And they have me dancing with these different girls, and I'm having to hold a drink while I dance with these girls. They're saying, hey, can you dance? Yeah, I can dance. Are you able to hold a drink while you dance? Let's do this.
Yeah.
And that kind of an opportunity, being trusted with that, even if I just look like a party goer in that sequence, they trusted me to come out and give it my best and do that whole sequence, and it was a blast. It took about 2 or 3 nights to finally get it set up and finally shoot it because of the storms, but once we finally did, I can always go back and rewatch that film, and I can fully start to finish see what it took to arrive there and accomplish that.
I imagine also that when they ask you something like that, you don't say no. Like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. That's like death sentence for you as an actor or something like that. They automatically kind of think, oh, this guy either doesn't want to, or he just can't, or he's just like lazy or something like that. You know, note to anybody that's watching out there, do not say no if they ask you to do something that's a little bit outside your comfort zone. You know, you never know. So just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, I suppose.
Yes. If I could go back to it, I would just reiterate exactly what you're saying. If I could, it's all those ifs, right? Woulda, shoulda, coulda. If things had been different during the casting of 12 Strong, and it came up, hey, are you proficient with riding a horse? Hey, can you hold a gun while riding on a horse? I would have been able to say, I have some experience riding horses. I've never held a weapon while riding a horse, but you know what? Like, I'm willing. Let's try it, you know? And that might have been something that could have led to a different path for me that way, right? But you never know until you're in the moment and you're actually doing it. Right. And a few of those came up. There were a few moments on the set where Clint would ask for somebody specific and he would say, okay, I need someone that can speak fluent Spanish. I want it believable. I want this to really like add to the scene. And they would come in and ask us like, okay, who's ready to throw out some Espanol? And we're like, you know, a couple of us are like, posible, maybe. But you know, I was totally down. I was ready to, but I didn't quite have the fit for it, obviously. Complexion-wise, kind of stand out a little bit there. Right. Like, what's this guy doing down here? And, you know.
Exactly.
You know, so.
That's awesome. I can imagine that being on a set like that, it comes with its own unique challenges, but also it has its own perks, definitely. For example, getting to talk to Mr. Eastwood. That must have been an experience.
It was incredible. It was one of those things where I of course admired him for, you know, he's a celebrity. He's this incredible being, right? He's this person that we've put on a pedestal for his accomplishments. But being out on set and actually watching him work, being in scenes around him, watching him do his thing, it became so much more about just wanting to learn more from him, be around him to pick up and just retain some of that from him. And so when I was able to actually speak with him, it really wasn't about, you know, hey, could you sign this? Or, you know, I really wasn't after that. It was more of, here's an opportunity to talk to him, meet him, and maybe ask him a question or two about this process, about what he's choosing to do here. And so in one of the sequences where his character is being escorted to this mansion, you know, it's filmed here in Las Cruces, of course, out at the Hutchinson house. The most incredible part about that whole sequence was these car club members who brought their cars in to be a part of that sequence. You see all of these high-end cars as you roll up to this house. Right. Well, those gentlemen were on set watching their cars be in the movie, be in the film, you know, and taking part in that. The really neat part was, as high in intensity as Clint was about getting the job done and doing it right and super serious when it comes to getting the work done, you could also see how much fun he was having doing it, because you'd see him break away and come over and admire the cars and start talking about them. And so it just so happened that I was a guard in that sequence who was near the cars, and he came out and just started chatting, and we just started talking about the cars, and we're talking about the production and just kind of just conversing. Maybe not as equals, but quite literally as, you know, maybe like kindred spirits, you know? It wasn't that I wanted or needed anything from him. It was just one of those things where getting to meet him and talk to him, that was enough. That was incredible, right? There were a few moments when we would go back to base camp and we would get ready to eat, and you know, it's chow time. And you have the primary actors getting up and getting their stuff first. You have crew who need to hurry up and eat and get back out there. And then you have, you know, us. You have the guards and the other background, and then the featured background, like, you know, what we were doing. We were able to get in line and chat with them a couple times. And one of the things that I admired so much about him was that Clint was a man of, like, he knew exactly what he wanted. He knew exactly how he wanted something done. So he had a personal friend of his out of New York, and he was a chef, and he made sure that that chef and his crew were here in Las Cruces to cater. Now that's pretty incredible when you say, you know what, if I'm gonna have to be on location filming, I'm gonna have my friend, my personal, like, you know, the chef I trust most, I'm gonna have him, his crew, I'm gonna throw a bid to them and have them be here to cater. And, you know, there was nothing wrong with any of that because the chef was legendary. He was incredible. He's an incredible chef, incredible cook. It's one of those things where you admire so much that Mr. Eastwood went as far as to say, this is a decision I've made, this is something I'm gonna go with, and I stand by it, and then the results speak for itself. You know? I would only add one other thing. I also was able to meet his daughter. His daughter was actually doing the wardrobe, kind of like the makeup and, you know, the hair and makeup stuff. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that until I met her. Yeah. So, yeah, once I actually met her and realized, I was like, oh, wow, like that's incredible. And, you know, I kind of geeked out a little bit. I wanted to tell her, not him. I was like, your father's legendary.
Yeah, really.
She kind of rolled her eyes and, yeah, I know, you know.
Yeah. Now that we've talked a little bit about 12 Strong and the Mule and your experiences with these awesome legendary actors, let's talk a little bit about another film that you did called Walking with Herb. That really was, I guess, an amazing experience, but also you got to work with Edward James Olmos and George Lopez. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the film and how you got on it, as well as what it was like to work with these amazing actors?
Yeah, I want to pick apart that question because that has a lot of moving parts to it that are they're fond memories to talk about. I had a lot of fun on that set. It's all about placement. You're thinking, when's the best time to film a golf movie, right? Obviously, when the weather's not terrible, right? You know, not too windy, not too, you know, there were days out there on set where it was a little bit, you know, sunny. And particularly, we had some very windy days, some very cold days, and I kind of thought to myself, I can understand if we're trying to make this particular scene look like it exists in a certain place, somewhere other than obviously Las Cruces, New Mexico, and maybe the weather has something to do with that, like Palm Springs, you know, and maybe the golf tournament's taking there. Maybe, you know, as a featured person, when you're doing featured background, it's not your job necessarily to like worry about that, but it's also great to ask those questions on set because it helps you understand what you're supposed to be doing and where your presence is. What am I supposed to be doing here? Am I just an audience member? Am I someone in the gallery? Am I going to be selected for a golfer? And if so, am I wearing the right attire? You know, things like that. They all come to mind. When I decided to go out for the audition for Walking with Herb, it was really because I wanted to stand behind all the people who were a part of it. There were so many talented individuals here out of Las Cruces who had to do with that film. The CMI department at New Mexico State University, okay? The director, Ross, is an incredible individual, okay? Love that man. And just watching him and watching his process and seeing him trust his former students to do the job and to go out there and work and put in all that effort, it was really neat. So that was probably the best part about being on that production and being part of that set was the individuals that were doing the work. They were familiar. They were like home team advantage. People I knew, people I had worked with before. A lot of the students that were working on the film, I had been in some of their senior film projects. I'd been in a part of some of their stuff, you know. And looking back on it, it's so funny because there's such a separation. When you go out and you work on more independent stuff, you can have a bigger presence. You can be the person that has the lines. You could be the person with the most footage ever, right? And those are phenomenal projects to help you become a better actor. And then you come back over to the featured film side of it, and it's like, who are you? Well, you're just gonna stand here and be a fixture and don't mess up. And you're like, well, I'm so much more than this.
Right. It's kind of like that thing. It's like, I want to be noticed a lot more, you know, that sort of thing. One of the things about being an actor, I'm not an actor per se, but one of the things that I do is, you know, if you guys watching don't know, of course, I do YouTube a lot, and it can be rather stressful, but also it can lead to bouts with self-consciousness. Especially when you have the camera trained on you, you know, you have this constant idea of like, oh my gosh, do I look a little bit fat here? Does my hair look okay? Am I wearing the right things? And I can imagine when you're working on films like these with really big talent like that, that insecurity comes out a lot more than it would normally. How did you kind of get past that for this particular film?
Yeah, that was something that was very important to me because once again, the people who were behind the camera were people that I admired, people that I truly cared about. Mr. Medoff is just this incredible being who I always thought was this incredible person that New Mexico State was like so lucky to have, like so very fortunate to have, right? And to see his daughter acting in the film, to see his son-in-law directing it, to see these different members of his family stepping in to really make this project something incredible, to make this film, right? Joseph Bullock is the person who ended up, well, he was the initial person who wrote the story, he wrote the book, and Joe was on set, and he's Joe, he's our hometown Joe. We all know him, we've all met him. He's a huge film enthusiast, but also saying to myself especially, I want this done right. I want all of us doing our best because, I mean, this is his baby. This is something that he and Mr. Medoff, they came together and created something special, and now we have a movie being filmed here. And so I want that film to succeed because I want people to look at it and say, hey, Las Cruces, what a great place to film. Look at these individuals coming out of New Mexico State and the CMI department. Look at how talented they are, right? And so the big thing for me was to concentrate on what the role and what the job, what the task was, right? A lot of the shots that myself and Leslie and AJ, a couple other friends that were out there, it was all about making sure that all of our reactions were solid, making sure that we were reacting the right way, making sure that we didn't let the scene fall apart by something not looking genuine. If it was disingenuine, you'd look at it and go, that's not believable. Like, where'd they pick these guys from? So it was really great to be out there and do the job. The big disparity was there were a lot of volunteers that took part in the film. The volunteers went out there with this huge aspect, this huge anticipation of, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna be in this movie, and I'm gonna get to have access to these actors whenever I want. I'm gonna be able to talk to them whenever I want, say what I want, do what I want. And the separation from them to myself is, practice, refinement, and honing your skills and having a certain pursuit, a more professional pursuit about it. As opposed to, here's a volunteer that decided, hey, I'm gonna wake up today and I'm gonna go meet George Lopez today. And then the behavior. I was paid to be on set. I was thankfully and so graciously paid to be a part of this project, and that gives me validation. That says, hey, you're good enough. You're good enough for this project. And then working around the volunteers, it was a lot of really trying to get them to put their best foot forward too. Trying to say, hey, I know you're here just for fun, but you're here to do a job too. You're here to make this succeed.
Take it seriously,
I would say we had a few hiccups here and there. We had a few moments on set where there were people trying to approach the celebrities right in the middle of a sequence, right at the end of a scene. Yeah, don't do that. It's one of those things where when you are on a film set, that magic that's happening in that moment, it needs to go undisturbed. It needs to be allowed to create itself and come into being and make something phenomenal, right? You're creating right here, in front of yourself. To step into that with that, hey, you're George Lopez, I'd like to come meet you, and will you take a photo with me? It's that's not the time or the place.
Yeah, exactly. So when it came to walking with Herb, it was a really different experience from, say, the Mule and 12 Strong. And in particular, because you were working with a different cast, namely George Lopez and Edward James Olmos. Tell us a little bit about what your experience was like with them and what they were like to work with.
I would say my very first day on set, it's the typical run through. It's, hey, you guys are here to do a job. Thank you guys for coming out, and we're happy that you guys got cast. We're gonna make sure you guys are set and ready to go out to set, and let's get this going. And you're also kind of giving the expectation, hey, you know what? We're here to work, we're here to do the job, but trust me, there's also gonna be some time to meet these people and talk to them. Just let that happen. Let that happen naturally, and don't try to force it. Don't try to corner people chasing them down, And that's kind of what plagued the other sets that I worked on. With 12 Strong, there were people who were just chasing down Chris Hemsworth with memorabilia. It's like you brought like some Avengers stuff out to set out in the middle of the desert, you know, and it's like, whoa, you know, and you know, pushing for photos and that kind of thing. Well, you know, with the Mule, it was far from that. The set was so professional, and the people putting forth that effort, there was really no harassment for photos, and there was no real pursuit. One of the things that I can say is that, you know, working with Chris Hemsworth was incredible. Working with Clint Eastwood, incredible. With George Lopez, that was like a first. That was a big first. Because you look at him and you say, here's a comedian. This is a person who like has been in television, who's been in movies, who has these, you know, specials, these television specials. And you have this expectation like, you know, is he gonna be on like all the time? Is he gonna be like cracking jokes all the time? What's the expectation?
Right.
And so that's where you have to you have to remove that veil and say, hey, he's here to do a role too. He's here working too. He's not just here as a fixture at our discretion to, you know. So the thing about George Lopez, which I thought was phenomenal, was that when the cameras were rolling, he was doing his job. He was awesome. It was a phenomenal thing to watch him work with Mr. Olmos. That was neat. It was something really special. In between the takes, in between the sequences and the scenes, he was doing his part to come and talk to us and cheese us up and like, get us laughing. And there were moments where it was like, okay, we gotta forget that, forget he said that. Let's go back to one here and do this again without, you know, breaking and laughing. And that was what was really different than any other film set I'd ever been on. I'd never been on a movie with a comedian before who made that extra effort to like really get people laughing and like, you know, let's relax. Everybody just relax, okay, you know? And the funny thing about that is the same thing could be said for Mr. Olmos. Edward James Olmos is an incredible actor, amazing humanitarian, and a legendary person just in general.
Right.
He's to me, he's the very same offset, onset, in between takes, after takes. He's the same type of person that carries himself in such a respectable manner. He's funny, he cuts some jokes, he's silly, you know, and it's also like coming home. He's like family, and he makes you feel like family. So one of the very first days on set with him, it's the end of the day, we're all very tired, we're all kind of tired and kind of stressing, like, oh, I hope this went well, I hope they're happy with us, I hope they keep coming to Crucis and keep filming movies here, right? And I go up to him and I'm just kind of standing near him thinking, what can I say to him to just be like, hey, thanks for being here. Like, I'm just grateful you're here. Like, I have a job, I'm being paid, I'm getting to be in this movie. That's all wonderful, but I'm just thankful you're here, right? You chose this place, or this is where we chose to make this happen, and you know, all the things that transpired to make that occur, all of that's wonderful, but he still chose to spend his time here and put his work in here to make the film right. And I'll never forget this. He kind of turned to me and he kind of saw that I was kind of looking at him, maybe for affirmation, I don't know. And he's just like, you know, you're doing pretty good. You guys are pretty solid out there, and I appreciate all the effort. So he's like, thanks for all you guys are doing out there, and he's like, keep up the good work. And I was like, thank you. I was like, Mr. Olmos, thank you. He's like, just call me Ed. He's like, call me Ed. He's like, cut that out. And I was like, you're okay, Mr. Olmos, you know? And you know, my admiration for him just kind of grew from that point on. Working with him and getting to chat with him each day, I just kind of had more and more respect for the guy.
So now that we've really explored some of the amazing experiences on these awesome films, let's talk about a film that we worked on, and that was Sentinels, my second short film, which was a rather interesting film. It was starring Alan Gonzalez and Haley Kirkpatrick, who's unfortunately not here in Las Cruces anymore, but they did an amazing job. But let's talk about the scene that we filmed together.
It was really awesome because I had actually worked with Scott before. And so Scott is your villain, Scott's your bad guy, right?
Yes.
And Scott and I actually did a lot of theater work together. We did a little stint called Don't Drink the Water, right? And that's based off of Woody Allen, right? So that was incredible to do, and that was a lot of fun. And so once again, through the networking, thanks to Sherry contacting me, I arrive here on set, ready to meet you. And then I'm meeting AJ, and I'm meeting Leslie. And the funniest thing about that is Leslie with all of her attitude, and she's looking at us, and we're getting ready, we're getting set, and Alan's like, I'm gonna come in and save you, and Leslie's looking at us like, I could kick all of you guys.
Yeah.
She's like, I could beat up all of you. And so Leslie was such a joy to work with because I had to act to make it seem like I could do any damage to her, like if I could attack her or scare her. For me to be scary, knowing that she's not afraid of me,
right?
That's acting.
Right. It was a very kind of push and pull kind of experience because if I remember correctly, Leslie was from New Jersey, so she was like, you know, I've run into people a lot worse than you on a daily basis, so it was a lot of work to get her to actually be scared on camera, but I think it worked out well enough in the end because it looked good on camera, but also you guys really, you know, brought out the fear, especially, you know, you and Michael Benavides, because I remember you guys got some of the close-ups, especially with you getting clocked by Alan's character.
That was a lot of fun. You know, a lot of people are saying, I don't like taking, you know, dirt falls or dirt naps. Like, I hate being knocked out, but working with Alan was so much fun because he was so practiced. I really feared for AJ because AJ was really taking all the hits, and I was getting knocked out, but AJ was the one that had to do some serious falls, and luckily my falls were they were simplistic. They were easy to do, and I didn't mind taking like 20 falls for you that night.
Right.
It was like, you know, being able to do that and work with Alan and seeing how practiced and rehearsed he was, that made that easier. Right. And then of course my prior experience with Scott. Scott's there to help with the choreography. Scott's in my corner and Scott's telling me, okay, change this up a little bit, fall a little different here, do this a little different. And it was amazing to see how we all came together, shot that all in one night. That, you know, that whole sequence was a one-night thing, and we knocked that out of the park, in my opinion. You know, that was a lot of fun.
Yes, I remember it was a reshoot because, like I said before, we lost 2 of our guys from the first day, and they couldn't come back. But we had you and Michael Benavides, and of course AJ come back, and you know, you guys had to learn everything that night. And also, it was a very interesting experience because we had to have you guys fall on concrete and not get hurt, but also look like you got hurt. And it was amazing because we had to drag out these old mats and these old rugs just to, just to make the fall safe. But we also had to shoot in such a way where the rugs and the mats weren't in frame. It was tricky, but it was so worth it, though.
It's all the logistics that go into it, and here we are doing an independent project and making this work and making it look phenomenal, right? And I go back and I think of 12 Strong, all the money, all the effort that went into that. You still have 150 guys who've never been on a set before, making sure they fall the right way, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we had a lot of, resets again and again and again because people just either weren't willing to commit to it or they weren't ready to make it happen, I would say that what prepared me the most for Alan knocking me out time and again and finding my perfect, comfortable position on the concrete was in 12 Strong. There's a sequence where a Chinook comes in, a massive helicopter, military copter, and the Chinook is basically going in to rescue and air medevac out a soldier. Well, during that sequence, we got hammered by the rotors. All of the Taliban were down, all the soldiers are on the ground, we're all dead, right? And that thing rolls in on us with a copter following it to get the air footage, and that thing just blasts us, right? So I learned that day, find a comfortable position because you're gonna be here all day, right? Well, that's why with everything Alan was doing and the choreography, I was like, the choreography's gonna be great, but how long am I going to be on the concrete tonight? I better make it comfy. Right.
So this has been a really, really awesome conversation, and it's been a really great experience just getting to talk with you about all these great experiences, and hopefully you guys, watching at home can really take away some rather awesome tips and tricks from this awesome actor. But just for a little bit of extra, I wanted to kind of ask you, Jayce, what tips do you have for aspiring actors that are looking to get into the field?
I would say that some good advice that I've picked up along the way is when you're pursuing something that you're passionate about, when you're driven to achieve something that you want to go out and get it, you want to achieve it for yourself, you want to accomplish it. The only thing that's stopping you is you. The only thing that's hindering you is your own fear and your own inability to act. right? And that sounds so harsh, but it's really like the self-motivation has to come from you. You can't have anyone else motivating you to go out and do something that you want to do, right? You have to do it. You have to pursue it. So I would say that the place to start from is take a good look in the mirror and kind of decide what it is that you want for yourself. I want to be the most incredible actor ever. Well, that's going to take a lot of work. That's going to take a ton of effort, and there are hundreds of thousands of people before you who have pursued that venture, that effort. So it's not, peg yourself down a notch, but be more realistic. Be more realistic about yourself and say, you know what? I want to be an actor. That's what I want. That's what I would like to achieve. And so, like I said, I ask myself, I have the paycheck in my hand. I have the pay stubs from all the films I've done. And I ask myself, I look in the mirror and I say, have I arrived? Am I an actor? Have I achieved this yet?
Right.
And in other people's eyes, which you shouldn't be worrying about, you're going to hear, well, it's not like you have a ton of lines. It's not like you're super recognizable. Well, I didn't see you at a red carpet event. All that stuff is just, it's such a facade. It's it's so much exterior than who you actually are as a person and what actually matters. So for anyone pursuing acting, you have to know yourself. And the joke is, because you got to know how to be everybody else but yourself. When you're acting, you got to know who you are, so you can be someone else.
I think that's such a crucial part of being not only an actor or a filmmaker, photographer, or any kind of creative, or if you just like an entrepreneur, or anybody that strikes out on their own to create their own path. It's very, very crucial that you learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone on a daily basis. If you commit to that mentality of constant improvement and pushing yourself beyond what you know, you'll be well on your way to success, I think. Again, Jayce, thank you for coming out. It's been a really amazing experience just to talk with you and your experiences on 12 Strong and the Mule and getting to meet Clint Eastwood and Chris Hemsworth and all these amazing actors. It's just been a blast to just have this awesome chat with you. And hopefully you guys watching there have taken away some really amazing nuggets of wisdom from this awesome actor. And I'll look forward to working with you in the future. So thanks again, man.
Thank you for having me. And I'm really wishing you all the success with everything you're after. The pursuit is phenomenal, and that's what it's all about. So, I have something, really big that I'm hoping comes through for me, and whatever comes from it, I hope it's something great. I hope it's something phenomenal.
Well, given your talent, I'm sure it will be. Give Jayce a thumbs up in the comments. That's gonna bring it to a close for this video. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, if you want to see more episodes of Revolutionary Insights, don't forget to go down below, click that subscribe button, and click the little bell icon to join the Revolutionary Army and level up your creative game. Lastly, guys, leave a like and share your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, love you, Revolutionaries, and I'll see you guys in the next video.